Welcome to the BAC. Thank you for joining us on this special evening. And today marks the closing of an extraordinary journey that we had undertaken 2 years ago when, during the height of the pandemic time, I reached out to Balkrishna Doshi and invited him to accept the honorary doctorate from the Boston Architectural College, which he graciously did. And although travel was not possible at the time, he provided us all the time and conversation necessary to speak to our graduates. And that was a wonderful beginning of a conversation that continued into this particular exhibition that we launched in January this year. And the plan was that he would join us and when we inaugurated in January, and unfortunately that was not to be the case. And that was a very poignant moment when he passed away on January 24th, and we opened the exhibition on January 11th. So we thought that, and this was the last major work that he was involved in, and he was involved with the exhibition and observed the production of the exhibition. And there was, in fact, a photo in the gallery that you can see to that effect. And he was asking about it till the last moment of his passing away. So this means a lot we know that this particular exhibition meant a lot to him and that it means a lot to us. It's an intimate view, a perspective on 9 of his works. And we will talk more about all of that in the exhibition when we wrap up the symposium and we go to the closing reception at 7 p.m. So we will save it for that time. And today we are gathered to actually provide a series of reflections and scholarly perspectives, filmic perspectives on Doshi's work. Clearly, Doshi's work, which spans 20th and 21st centuries, and Doshi was a bridge to the great masters and to independent India, to globalization, and it's an epic journey that he had undertaken. And there's a lot there. There's a lot, and even as I was growing up in India as a student of architecture, looking up to Doshi and trying to understand, there were only snippets, bits and pieces, right? You would go to a project, you would listen to this, you read that book. But I think what we need is a systematic reflection and exploration of Doshi's work. And so we are hoping that this is a first of many that will unfold. Perhaps we are starting at the BAC, and I'm pretty sure more of these kinds of reflections will be continued around the world. But we are happy and pleased and honored to be getting this started. Today so before I get into the symposium itself, I wanted to provide you a broader context of why this exhibition is here now. Why Doshi, why now, and why at the BAC, right? It should make sense. And so in order to do that, I'd like to show you what our vision, the bigger vision is, and in which this whole journey is a part. So let's watch that, and then I'll share a few more words. We are on a mission. I described the Boston Architectural College as a 133-year-old startup. We have great legacy, but we also have the energy and the vigor and spirit of innovation that permeates throughout its 133 years. And we constantly reinvent ourselves in relation to the changes in the society.
Warren Buffett said, someone is sitting in the shade of a tree today because someone planted that tree many years ago. And so our strategic plan is really creating that tree.
I don't think architects are going to solve it alone, but I do hope that the strategic plan's vision will give us a place where we are a leader in design education that invites students and recent alums to join in much more powerful thinking.
If you always do what you always did, you'll always get what you always got. And I think that we've been really changing things up. Right? The different kinds of people coming to us from all over the world really enriches the experience.
Everything we do at the BAC has 6 sides to it. The first thing is that our commitment to social justice is to make sure that individuals, particularly individuals emerging from underserved communities, first-generation students, have access to design education, no matter where they are in their life and career.
And when we look at innovation, maybe we are the ones who can help to diversify innovation so that more brains that work differently and more people that have different stories and different backgrounds are able to engage not in innovation for those that have too much, but innovation that solves hard problems.
Number 2 is that we recognize that our mission is global and that we are a Bostonian institution firmly rooted in Boston and New England area, and yet we serve the entire world.
We really like having the voice of the international student because it makes us more well-rounded in how we address design problems and then present solutions that could really encompass a wide variety of cultures.
How do we bring both the world to Boston, but also bring Boston Architecture College to the world, to a diversity of population?
The future is taking what we've been doing for 130 years and bringing it to a global scale in the current world with the technologies and everything to create access to these students.
Our students don't always have to be right here sitting next to us to learn the curriculum, to develop as professionals. We are able to reach students wherever they are as well.
Aspect number 3 is that we are a powerhouse of an intellectual think tank, that we are making contributions to the world through our design, particularly in technology.
More ideas generate new knowledge, and knowledge leads to the path of excellence.
The BAC Cloud Canopy is one of the ways in which we invite students who are in Manila, South Korea, and Argentina to be a part of our community.
The Cloud Canopy is our term for a suite of products. We keep everyone fully connected, no matter where they are.
Right now we have coverage over 85% of the world. If you live, 1,010 or 10,010 miles away, you can still take a course at the BAC.
Number 4 is that we recognize that we are a small institution. At the moment we have 750 students, and yet we are a mighty institution because we partner.
The BAC and the strategic plan, it is wholly celebratory of our partnerships. It includes community partners and governments and organizations and industries. And the BAC has tied those together in a compelling, beautiful way that no one else has.
At the heart of this initiative is social innovation and entrepreneurship. It enables students, faculty, community partners, professional partners to come together to explore really their big why around why are you in architecture and why do we need to be creating new things.
Number 5 is that we see ourselves as a resilient organization. We need to innovate in terms of how we operate and be able to actually model the way for the rest of the higher education world.
And the model that has been put forward, I think truly is a model that other institutions can learn from. This idea of mixed reality combined with the ethos of come as you are, and it is our responsibility to make you successful.
We are committed to being an access institution in an industry that does not always embrace that. You can live anywhere, have a device, and have access to what the BAC can offer.
The last but not the least, the sixth one, is that we recognize that the world is faced with some of the biggest environmental challenges of any time.
This idea that design will be a pathway to solving those moments of wicked problems that need to be addressed throughout the world, things like global warming, climate change, issues of that nature, but also social justice and sustainability writ large. These are really pieces that the strategic plan speaks to, and so that idea of growth is about getting design literacy out there in the world as a methodology of attacking those problems, of solving those problems, and of engaging the communities that are suffering under those problems.
It's a very different thing when people from the community are included in the design process, not just as audience members, but as leaders, as facilitators, people asking deeper questions, understanding the connectivity of design to so many entrenched social issues. So it's crucial that we get the design profession to join and be a part of the community, not just giving a gift on a platter to the community.
We're daring to dream a bigger dream, which is really exciting and powerful.
The strategic plan is inviting our partners, the world, to join us, to go.
So I think hopefully that makes it clear why Doshi is here in spirit, in substance, through this exhibition, through the discourses, and this is, it is central to what we are trying to do at the BAC. And it is global, it is certainly inclusive, and we are bringing diverse voices that are important for a resilient future, any direction we see. And so this is an important beginning for us, an important project for us. And so with that, I'd like to now today, Doshi's granddaughter, Kushnu Pantaki Hoof, was supposed to join us today, and she could not for a variety of reasons. And so she sent us, and she is the curator of this exhibition and has collaborated with us throughout these 2 years. So she has shared a message we'd like to play. I think that will set the tone, and then we will go into the introduction speakers.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kushnu Pantaki Hoof. I'm an architect and exhibition designer and the curator of this exhibition, Balkrishna Doshi. Architecture is within us. Today, as the exhibition closes, I had very much hoped to be there with all of you. But the last few months have been really very difficult for me personally, from losing my grandfather, my mentor, and my best friend earlier this year. So this exhibition is my humble tribute to him, to his teachings and his works. And I hope that it will continue to inspire generations of architects. As much as I constantly try to follow his advice, to celebrate life, it is very difficult to overcome the loss. So please do excuse me if I'm unable to articulate myself today. I'll try my best. Some of the most cherished memories of my grandfather are of him being fascinated by nature. He would often watch monkeys jumping and lazing around. In his garden, he would be constantly surrounded by peacocks and peahens. And he would just sit there, watch the trees swaying in the breeze while the light would filter through, the fluttering leaves. And I often joined him in when he would sit there, because sitting in the garden watching nature almost was like a daily ritual for him. And a few days before he passed away, the two of us were sitting in the garden, and somehow I just asked him what his most important lesson had been so far. And after a brief pause, he said, fiction. That is something he had never, he had written a lot of fiction and myths about projects as a, because he was a great storyteller, but he'd never said that fiction was something that was the most important lesson for him. So I went on to ask him why he said, what was the meaning of a fiction being the most important lesson, to which he further explained to me that, it is fiction that twists and turns, constantly evolves, and expresses fluidity of time. It's free, and it has no beginning and no end. So life, as he would always say, happens between reality and illusion. So that was one of the most important lessons for me. And being a great storyteller, he often spoke about every project not as a static building, but as a story in itself. And every story that he spoke about always underlined a reverence for his gurus, while the love and celebration of life were always the seed of his works, be it architecture, writing, or painting. These would always be superimposed with multiple imageries, weaving a new narrative each time. So likewise, it is impossible for me to talk about him in a linear manner, because every incident and every learning, brings back several memory of shoots. So like he would always say that remain a child at heart and look at everything as if for the first time. So freeing the mind by getting lost was his way of finding answers to most of his inner questions that he had. So he would constantly also tell me that, you must always cultivate your eyes and lend a careful ear to your inner promptings, because it is only, through this connection that ideas will emerge. And he would further add that, education is actually a recollection of experiences. So one must take time to reflect, to be adaptive, to be open, to evolve and remain fluid. So he spoke about the intangibles, the thresholds between the body and the spirit, the shadow and light between built and the unbuilt. And I continue to feel his presence in his buildings, even now, in the way the light moves, the breeze flows, and the shadows appear and disappear. So in this exhibition, the projects that you see are, for me personally, they express all of these learnings through the different, interpretations of these very, his projects here in this exhibition, they're not restrictive to a particular era or a year, but they are a search to create an architecture that is rooted in the place, and yet they don't label themselves as vernacular or traditional, though they do encompass the learnings from the traditional and vernacular, but they present themselves in varied forms. And these avatars are, celebrated in these exhibitions through the sections, through the videos, through the moving images, as well as through the interactive models. I must thank Karen and Mahesh ji. They were so supportive, and they made sure that, they have been extremely accommodative of me not being able to be there today. They have been, I'm sorry, I'm just... But I hope that through this exhibitions and through this wonderful closing ceremony that they have planned, it will make Doshi happy wherever he is. In the last days, he often kept saying to all of us, he said Anand Karo in Gujarati, which means keep celebrating life. So please to celebrate his life today. And I hope that in his works, you will find, that his conversations will continue through his works into the vast spaces beyond all thresholds. Thank you.
Moving and reflective message, we can kick off the program today. I am absolutely grateful for an extraordinary lineup of speakers we have today. And these are world-renowned experts and scholars who have been thinking about a variety of topics in the mix of which Doshi's work can be situated. And so I'm very grateful, and I will introduce the speakers. The first speaker for today is Professor Vikram Bhatt from McGill University. Professor Bhatt is an expert on the work of the celebrated architect Balkrishna Doshi. As a student at CPT Ahmedabad, Bhatt collaborated with Doshi and has written extensively about his work over many decades, contributing significantly to raising Doshi's international profile and also supporting the Vasilpa Foundation and training and education programs involved with that unit as well. But graduated from CEPT, and then he went on to graduate from McGill University. And after graduating, he joined the research team of the Minimum Cost Housing Group, an educational research unit within the McGill University School of Architecture. His research has focused on human settlements planning, urban design, housing, and urban agriculture. Bhatt's human settlements research explores the interactive living experiences of people through the creative engagement of designers. He has authored many books, and starting with Resorts of the Raj, Hill Stations of India, co-authored After the Masters, Contemporary Indian Architecture, The Urban Problematic, and most recently, the book Blueprint for a Hack, Leveraging Informal Building Practices in Canada involving Inuit communities and beyond. Very, very fascinating book he just shared with me. While working with Doshi, he essentially produced most of the drawings for that were featured ultimately in William Curtis's book, Balkrishna Doshi, An Architecture for India. Professor Bhatt was intimately involved in transforming the sites and services model into urban design paradigm. And through his work with Doshi on Aranya Housing Project, he even tracked the progressive development of how that particular space and the place evolved over a decade. So it gives me great pleasure and honor to invite Professor Vikram Bhatt.
Thank you, Mahesh, for your welcome to the college and including me in this very important event. And for your kind of over-the-top introduction. Yes, I worked in the field of housing. Many of you may not know, Balkrishna Doshi designed the most housing of any architect, well-known architect in India. So if I were to speak about Balkrishna Doshi this evening, I should be speaking about housing, and especially having worked with him, collaborated with him on one of his largest housing project, which houses about 80,000 inhabitants. And I worked on that project and presentation for this evening till 4 days ago. And then, but if one wants to decipher Doshi, I told myself the best way is to engage with him on more personal level. And his private residence was off limits. So second best option that I had was to choose his atelier. And it is a very special project that he designed, and therefore I thought that would be the project to kind of discuss with you in the brief time we have. Sangha in Gujarati, as you saw the title of it, in Doshi's mother tongue and mine means moving together. Doshi was devoted to the idea of exchanging and networking. And tellingly, he named his atelier Sangha. So that is a very kind of direct way of communicating and saying, this is what I believe in, and this is what the project's all about. And what you see here is a pair of birds from his sketchbook. It was his book, Paths Uncharted. It's a remarkable title, don't you think, which describes his life's journey and his professional engagements. And this is how he has explored and led his life, Paths Uncharted. And he is figuring out his way and still managing to make amazing things which make occupants and people, those who live there, happy. And he writes in this book, such experiences are the main threads of my life. Over the years, the fabric now comprises hundreds of layers distilled from all these experiences of the East and the West. I do not know which dominates now. I know that there are times when one of them clearly dominates the other. That is why I like to say there are many layers to my being, and these layers have inevitably found their way, expressions in my projects all along. Furthermore, he emphasizes, however, if I have to choose one single project as expressive of these complex layers and their interplay, I would choose Sangat. In spite of many other subsequent projects of varied scales and functions, I believe images and experiences from all the multiple worlds that I have lived in, I have tried to fuse them in Sangha. Notably, the Pritzker Prize laureate created Sangha not just as an atelier. He was the architect, he was the client, he was the promoter. I will explain to you why he was the promoter. He was the institutional builder, and he imagined, he envisaged Sangha would have all these things present in it. So it was to be his atelier. It was supposed to be a place where people could come and meet and exchange ideas. It would be a place which would house the Vastu Shilpa Foundation and promote research in the field of architecture. And this distilled idea of the program itself that he developed was when he was 55 years old. So it's a mature person who has seen the life, he has experienced things, and then he says, this is what I would like to do. And again in his word, varied experiences and their layering in Sangat have come from my understanding of life and association. I'm always attracted towards the architecture that has gone through mutations and yet is within the order of its mutating and making. That is why Sangat has this distinct, perhaps the unique character, I believe, and that is why everybody likes it. And this is the first, one of the initial sketches, which he made later, you have in his book, Paths Uncharted. One of the main warps of Balkrishna Doshi's life remain his association with Corbusier. Working with him in the Paris influenced him greatly. Corbusier's atelier, located at 35 Rue de Sèvres in Paris, was the birthplace of great modernist architectural ideas. Corbusier moved in this location in 1924, and that place remained his studio till his death in 1965. Between the wars and the post-war period, Paris was an artistic, creative hub. His studio became a crossroad of intellectuals. Many young, talented designers descended in his studio. They brought experiences, worldviews, ideas, but Corbusier dealt with them on his terms. They worked under him, under his tutelage, creating architecture which was his vision in a very special way. And here you see Balkrishna Doshi right in the middle of that group of people. The interior of the Rue de Sèvres that you see here is telling. It's a long, narrow corridor. The atelier occupied an old, abandoned Jesuit monastery. The edifice sat perpendicular to Rue de Sèvres. The corridor we see here had 7 windows on one side, overlooking the courtyard. The high ceiling passage was 4 meters high. The corridor was only 3.5 meters wide and 40 meters long. Should I switch to feet and inches, or it's okay? 130 feet by 11.5 feet by 13 feet, okay? The monastic space served as the studio, accommodating series of drafting tables. Walls were covered with drawings, models, and photographs. A discerning sign outside at the front of the monasteries announced Le Corbusier's office. At the one end of the passage, a blackboard was there. There were other things. To set up the studio, Corbusier further organized 2 little petit ateliers. And one atelier was occupied by his cousin, Pierre Jeanneret, and another was occupied by Corbusier. A single stove heated this corridor. It was bearable. But in the good weather, the place changed. Windows were open, tree courtyards, you could sense it, feel it, the light would pour in, and you could hear the birds in the garden. At the far end of the studio, Corbusier, the purist painter himself, painted this mural. It wasn't painted early on, it was painted after the war in 1947. It remained there. It was salvaged after the building was taken down. I was able to photograph it at the archives with the studio, the Fondation Corbusier. If one strong strand in the life of Doshi was Sangat, of Corbusier, or Rue de Sèvres 35, the second one is like a spine that stand in, is, I would say, his ancestral woodworking carpentry. He often talked about growing up in Pune, of his family home, and the carpentry business of his grandfather. He easily engaged and related with materials like wood and clay, had a fascination for and needed to work with physical objects. He almost played with models and practically lived in them and played inside like a child and imagined his buildings. Physical models catalyzed him. And you can see how beautifully Kushnu and Doshi have relayed this in a kind of, as she describes it, another avatar of what was not conceived while imagining the building, but after the fact, to bring us into these spaces and how they are inhabited, how they are lived in, and how they have evolved over a period of time. So it's a very beautiful show, a very touching, intimate, and this is where Doshi's tradition comes. His fascination with these toys was nurtured in Corbusier's office. Here you see Balkrishna Doshi playing with the model of Chinubai House. There were 5 buildings commissioned by the wealthy mill owners of Ahmedabad. This is the toy which you see was never built, and it remained a model. When I found this, it was a very touching experience. When I was doing research and I found these photographs, I put them aside, I had them copied and so on, and then when Doshi came, I gave it to him, and he said, "Finally, you found my source, and thank you for doing it." And he dedicated it to Susie and me. And here you see Balkrishna Doshi in his original studio in old Ahmedabad. He was not surrounded with young workers who were just to be guided by the master. He worked with them. In the later years, the role changed, but the time I remember when he's working here, it's a very telling thing. Here you see Kurula workers. There you see Mr. Bausa. There you see Desai. Kind of stalwarts, the young generation whom he groomed and built. However, and this is the model of Premabai Hall. There were several models with the project you see down there. But he had as much respect for professional architects, qualified people, and young professionals whom he was grooming as Dharma. It's amazing that Purushottam was like his other soul. Purushottam passed away a few days before Doshi did, as if to make room for him wherever he was going. We have gone around the block, so let's come to the building. And this is the Doshi's kind of initial sketch of Sangha. Doshi acquired a bucolic plot outside of Ahmedabad large enough to have a very large building. The initial sketch that he makes, and you see the section of it downstairs after the show, you will be able to see, is a very intimate, tight Rue de Sèvres. But Rue de Sèvres carriage is going to be covered in a very different way. It will have a vault, it will have a meditative character, but it will not be on the same terms, but it will be on Doshi's terms. There are no windows on one side bringing in light. Light that he wants to bring in would be very different. The light which will be coming in will be coming from the top, the north light. And it is interrupting the walls, and it will work out. And at the same time, you will look around how cozily people are moved around in these spaces. But this space remains very important. You can see these very beautifully explored in the models. The outside model, which is a clay model, where steps are sculpted out, the vaulted structures are there, and the building is practically inside the ground. He's addressing the climate. He is building the building in a very hot climate. It is his office. It costs a lot of money to keep it cool in the summer months. So this would be cooled, air-cooled building itself, and so on. So he was ecological before ecology became a major storyline. At the same time, you look at the other model, and you are inside in a very special way, exploring spaces, the quality of life, and the experiential aspects are just tremendous. And these are the two elevations that you see. This is the elevation from the street. Imagine yourself on Rue de Sèvres. That is the spine running through, and that's what. He pulls the building all the way on the side. The courtyard, which was in the other place, is now a tropical garden. And the long elevation, which is there with the sculpted steps, the experience of journey, moving through this place and coming in to this compound, are so beautifully orchestrated in this organization. To build this, Doshi employed cylindrical clay tiles, very ordinary building material, labor-intensive, and modest structure was skillfully inserted within the existing majestic 1, 2, 3 mango trees. It was a mango orchard within which the building was skillfully just driven in, and you do not even feel that the building is being inserted. It would appear as if it was there and created, as if it was part and parcel of, as the trees were growing, people were moving in there. And when we look at the completed kind of spine of the building, taut, covered in China mosaic, you saw the initial clay model which is there, the steps which are there, which is gonna be a place of accidental or organized meeting, crossing of the paths. All the spaces which are happening would all happen on the spine. You sense it, you experience it, but you are working in a meditative manner, but then you will come back out into this place in a very special way. And here you see the inside of the studio. This is Martin Charles' photograph of Sangat's studio looking south. And this is looking north where the light pours in. Like in the Corbusier studio, the end wall was a blackboard on which the models with colors would appear. That would move. Again, there were scales there, so you had measured distances and proportions all working in this space, and there you are. I can walk you through very quickly, Dorin. The plan downstairs you have where there was a parallel space behind, they have created a gallery, which was for passive cooling, but you can see the studio space, carpentry studio, that is his plan. Those are the two main aspects of it. And this is the petit atelier of the master himself. Here he shows 4 chairs. If you go back to petit atelier Corbusier, there is only 1 chair. When you went to Doshi's office, there was generally 1 chair. That's what he occupied. And Corbusier occupied that wall. There was a picture of him remained there. And this is soon after the project was completed. Unfortunately, all 3 mango trees died. I was fortunate enough to be there, and I lived there in this building many summers. So it was a wonderful place to be. I was all alone at the end of the day, be able to sit out on this plaza and be surrounded by this Shantiniketan. Perhaps some people know Rabindranath Tagore, who started a very special educational institution in India, the Indian Nobel laureate, a poet. He created the educational institution, a university, arts, crafts, music, literature, and education of this in the most kind of this was before the independence, so I'm hesitant to use nationalist word in this regard, but it was respecting of the roots of the place. And this is what was created. And here is Balkrishna Doshi's creation. And this is what is the entrance when you come inside. So again, what welcome he provides to visitors who are coming in. The drama, after walking through the entire garden, you arrive there. It's a very beautiful kind of conceit. And then when you walk through, and this is the amphitheater and reflecting pool and other areas. And this is after the monsoon rains. From the guest house, I could go out and see. And this is where I was able to experience fully what Doshi kind of worked on afterwards, and which has become a very special way of describing this building. When he created this silk screen, and he describes this building in different layers. The most important one is the sky, the water channels running through, and the grounds. So that you can see here. The sky, water channels running through these areas, and then feeding the grounds. The whole ecological aspect of capturing the rain, nurturing the nature at the place where you live, and then not overusing it and helping recharge it. It was a very, very beautiful idea with minimum amount of vertical support system that you can see imagined here in the brown. So these are the 2 elements where he imagines the 3 planes and verticals to bring them together in some manner. And the third one is the landscape which comes with it. But it is not complete. When you look at this, there is something missing. He, as an architect, needs to frame, he needs to present in a very special setting. Please come. You're welcome. Anyone is welcome to this place. Even though it's a compound, it's an open space, it is an office, but you will never feel that it is a commercial architect's office. You are arriving at a very special compound in a very special sacred place. This is what completes the silk screen at the end. It's a very sophisticated way of kind of how does he pull these things together? We have to learn to understand. What he provides is the armature. What he provides is the framework within which we can play, we can do things, be ourselves and be full. And this is what I have tried to show, not in this project, but I have taken liberty here. Here, when he did this Gufa project, a very famous painter, he brings in different tradition. He's not afraid of embracing Hindus or Muslims. The sources were all for him. The East, the West, they come together. And he provided the framework within which, and I kind of shamelessly slid in Corbusier's mural at the end. And Doshi can easily bear it. Thank you.
That was a mesmerizing talk. And I think making connections to spaces, experiences, and themes that repeat, and the meaning we seek in these kinds of recreations or continuities, and ultimately moving together, right, Sangat? And that's beautifully stated. And we'll get deeper into that during the discussion time. But now it is my pleasure to actually welcome Dean Karen Nelson to make the introduction to our next speaker.
Thanks, Mahesh. Thanks, everyone. Good evening. I had the pleasure of meeting our next participant this past June in Berlin, where I was completely entranced by his latest documentary film, The Promise, which features Balkrishna Doshi moving and walking and talking about his work. I want to let you know a little bit about Jan Schmidt-Gara. Jan studied philosophy as well as staging and directing in Munich. During that time, he worked as a trainee and assistant for stage directors Rudolf Nolte, David Esrig, Joachim Hertz, Jean-Pierre Panel, and Harry Kupfer. He studied conducting and musical theory with Sergiu Celibidache, and in 1988, he founded Pars Media, a production company which has received international acclaim for its documentaries and feature films focusing on music and the arts. Schmidt-Gara has also started directing opera. He has staged Massenet's Manon, Korngold's Die Tote Stadt, and Beethoven's Fidelio at the Theater St. Gallen, as well as Strauss's Arabella at the Leipzig Opera. He's a member of the German Film Academy. Jan, the podium is yours. You're speaking to a group of about 75 people.
Thank you very much, Karen, for the kind introduction and for inviting me. I'm very honored to be in this circle because Doshi means a lot to me. And yeah, when I discovered him, it was a redemption. I was finally able to make a film about architecture, which I'm so interested in, and which I had never found a place in, which had never had found a place in my work. Then there was my love of India, which had made me do a film about modern yoga 10 years ago, Breath of the Gods, and which I so much wanted to live out in a new film. And finally, the desire to think cinematically about the laws of art, taken in hand by a wise, humorous, cool man who thoroughly understood what building was all about. He was still vital and productive then at the age of 91. When we started, he was 92. And who at the same time represented a bridge to an age which is mythically far away from us, modernist architecture at the time of Le Corbusier and Louis Kahn. I wrote to India, heard back nothing, called, had a lovely conversation with his granddaughter and office partner Kushnu Pantakihoof, who we just heard, and finally went to Ahmedabad just a few weeks after the initial idea. Doshi received me with his unique warm affection, invited me to his office, and totally surprised me when he told Kushnu, who had entered after a few minutes, he is willing to do the film. He, me, Doshi was willing, and that was the sensation. Let's watch the trailer.
Architecture is storytelling. It's a journey. It's a dialogue. And it is a discovery of who you really are. Okay. I was in primary school. I had to write an essay. What would you like to do in your life? Not knowing anything, I said, can I make some furniture which is the cheapest possible so that every house will have something to sit on and something to sleep? I still have to fulfill that promise. Silence.
Architecture is storytelling. That sounds good and cool and modern, but what it really means, I only learned in the weeks with Doshi and even more in the month of editing. First of all, it's true for him. The architect, as Kushner said before, is a storyteller, a fantastic one. And interestingly, so many great architects are. Doshi's heroes, Le Corbusier and Louis Kahn, Rem Koolhaas, Jacques Herzog, and of course, the master of all storytellers, Frank Lloyd Wright. But it's also true of Doshi's buildings. All the architects I just mentioned, maybe with the exception of Koolhaas, would start with volumes in space, with a formal idea. Doshi imagined the action that would take place in the building, the experiences of the users walking through it. He designed stories. When he built a university, he didn't just meet his customers' demands. He realized his vision of an ideal campus, which he thought of in terms of interactions, exchanges between students and professors, a chance meeting in the cafeteria that might lead to something more important than the seminar the student missed. Architecture as a stage set, as a blueprint of real life. Let's watch a scene about how a visitor should perceive Doshi's own office that Professor Bhatt ideally talked about exactly 10 minutes ago. So now you will understand and learn Doshi's perspective on it.
Lot of people came, and very often even now, people come and they go back again to the entrance because they come here, they see this as a garden, they think this is not the office. You don't find people. You don't find people. In an office, there will be people, but here you don't see anybody. And neither you see this, and there is a water which will be filled now. But there is water here, the water goes across, and you come into the big steps. And wanting to go to the office. Where is the office? Where are the people? And you only see the roof. But then there is a door here. So I think this must be the office door. But there is no handle. The door is closed. It's very strange. Even this door is closed. Oh, it's closed. Then I come here and I go back. And when I go back there, I question, what is this place? And what is this place made in such a way that it can be a public park or public building, but our address is the same. I'm just trying to find all the things, but I'm just not finding the elephant at the moment. I forget the place and I feel like a park, and my building is far away. Do we create an office, or do you create something unique as experience? So remove everything that is a memory, the lobby, the entrance, the style, the formality, etc. But it should look very folk-lyric, like in a village. Now, what was the reason of this journey? I think that journey is what everybody goes through. And in that journey is the discovery of space, discovery of experiences. And then there are pauses like this. You can make a wall like this, you can make a wall there, you can make a wall here, and you can make a wall like this and whatnot. So the journey comes when it makes you turn here, and it goes like this, and you come into this, and a dialogue starts happening. So the journey is constantly making you as if you are in a movie. So the stable architecture is becoming fluid architecture. So I consider architecture as a fluid entity.
Doshi is a storyteller, architecture is storytelling, and I myself am telling Doshi's story. Telling stories is the most important task in editing, not only with regard to the film as a whole, but with every single chapter. Last June, I went to the Greek island of Hydra for the first time. I can tell you what's special about Hydra like this. The mayor of Hydra has banned plastic chairs, drink vending machines, and advertising posters on his island. This leads to a very beautiful, homogeneous visual appearance. But I can also tell the story like this. When I arrived in Hydra, the very first harbor bar was so beautiful and inviting that I immediately wanted to sit down inside. The next one was even nicer. Why is that, I asked myself, until I realized there are no plastic chairs, no vending machines, no advertising posters. Later, I learned that the strict and visionary mayor of Hydra had banned these things a few years ago. What a simple but effective measure. The second version of my story is not only more vivid and has more detail. I let the listener, in the film, the viewer, take my position. Instead of her or him just noting the facts, she experiences the situation in time, as I do. The emotional impression is much stronger and more lasting. However, the second version of my Hydra story is more than twice as long as the first one. You need more time when you work like that. But I think today a film no longer has to convey facts. That's what the internet is for. It's all about deep experiences. And that's what Doshi tried to create all his life. Thank you very much.
I think what an extraordinary and serendipitous theme that has been flowing through these various presentations. Jan, thank you so much. That was quite inspiring, and we look forward to watching the full film sometime soon.
Thank you.
Great. It's now my pleasure to introduce the next speaker, Dr. Vikramaditya Vikram Prakash, an architect, architectural historian, and theorist. He is currently a professor of architecture at the University of Washington, where he also serves as the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs. Vikram graduated from the Chandigarh School of College of Architecture in India, and then from Cornell University. In 2020, he was honored as an ACSA Distinguished Professor, the highest national recognition for an architectural educator. Vikram's work focuses on modernism, post-coloniality, global history, and the interplay between fashion and architecture. He has published several books, including Chandigarh's Le Corbusier, The Struggle for Modernity in Post-Colonial India, co-authored book, A Global History of Architecture, which has been translated into 5 languages and widely used as a textbook. He's also authored Colonial Modernities and The Architecture of Shivdat Sharma. His recent book, One Continuous Line, Art, Architecture, and Urbanism of Aditya Prakash, was published in 2021. As the host of Architecture Talk, a bi-weekly podcast showcasing curated conversations with invited guests, Vikram has garnered over 120,000 unique downloads in its first 2 years and received independent reviews in the American Scholar. Vikram is also co-founder and design principal of OUR, O-U-R, which stands for Office of Uncertainty Research, a design research practice committed to rethinking architecture within the evolving scientific, social, and political landscape of the 21st century. Vikram has a passion for poetry, as I do as well, and is an avid enthusiast of modern dance and theater. His current research delves into fashion and architecture, or body architecture, an experiment in cross-pollinating diverse disciplinary design intelligences with a focus on the works of Alexander McQueen and Enrique Miralles. It is my absolute pleasure to invite my friend, Dr. Vikram Prakash, to the podium.
Thank you all. It's a pleasure to follow up behind my fellow Vikram and the wonderful filmmaker and Kush Mubarak. And I just want to first begin by congratulating BAC and Mahesh and Karen and the entire team over here for putting together an excellent exhibit and for bringing Doshi here to Cambridge and celebrating him and talking about him in this very opportune time, which connected well with his life story. And I'm still trying to, and it's great that's over here at the BAC. the kind of exploration, recognition that people like Doshi still deserve, which is still to be done. It's fantastic to have this over here. And the symposium today is entitled Deciphering Doshi. And I thought, good luck. And the exhibition is entitled Architecture is Within Us. And that took me back to my long association as one of Doshi's disciples, if you like. As Mahesh mentioned, I was born and brought up in Chandigarh, the other great modernist city of India, designed by Le Corbusier. And my father, a good friend of Doshi's, had worked with Corbusier on that. And after I graduated from there, one of the first things I did, of course, was a pilgrimage to the other modernist city, which had been consecrated and haloed by Doshi. So I went to his office, I sat around, I looked at the work, tried to understand what was going on, maybe figured out a little bit, went on to grad school in the US, came back doing my PhD, and I was teaching at CEPT. And Doshi was designing the Bourse, this huge diamond project in Bombay, which did turn out quite well. And in the course of events, we sat and we decided for some reason that we were going to record a dialogue, him, Rajiv Katpalia, another colleague, Bobby Desai, and myself. And there are about 70 pages of transcribed notes, out of which, sitting over there in Sangat, probably in the same room that Vikram was sitting, one of the side rooms, I wrote a play called Between the Built and Unbuilt, Between the Built and Unbuilt, and a dialogue in uncertainty, in which, following Doshi's lead, I tried to create a fictional narrative around the entire construction of the Diamond Bourse. This play is still unpublished, and I'm thinking it's a good time to publish it, perhaps, and to bring it out. But my vivid recollection of those dialogues, and I tried to, and I looked over them again last week, is that it's the experience of being with Doshi, and perhaps that comes through in some of these films, was that you never could quite figure out what he was saying. He talked about architecture as being fluid, but his storytelling was also very fluid. And when he lectured, he would simply thread together in a free associative way thoughts and thoughts and thoughts and thoughts and thoughts and thoughts and thoughts. And you never really knew where it was going to end up or when it was done. And this was quite disconcerting, honestly, for somebody, a young student, going up to learn at the feet of the master. And it came across, to a certain extent, in sharp contradistinction with some of the other big voices on the Indian modernist stage. If you think of somebody like Charles Correa, who spoke in crisp, lucid sentences with well-articulated thoughts, which hammered home a single point in vivid detail, in contrast, you never really knew what Doshi was talking about. But over the years, I thought, what I have learned to accept via my body is that for Doshi, unlike a lot of other architects, architecture was not a sales job. He was not looking to make a point, a quick sale, and sort of tell you a good story for the sake of a pitch. He was trying to build narratives that explored the possibilities inherent inside architecture. And more importantly, he was trying to, through the dialogue, while he was talking to you, while he was in conversation with you, continuing his personal quest of exploring what architecture as inhabited space, as the living of life, as the experience of narration and narrative could be. He was designing while he was talking to you, is what I realized. many, many, many years later. And this is the realization that I have tried, that has matured with me, as I think I have matured in years, and which now stays with me in different registers. So I thought, instead of bringing a lot of images, and thankfully Vikram has already done this, and the wonderful film is already there, and Kushnu's images, and you have the images down there. I also went back and reread Paths Uncharted. And I thought, what do I hear in this book? And if architecture is within us, there are about 3 or 4 things that kind of jumped at me now, rereading the book, I don't know, about 10 years later, from when I first read it. And I'll try and share those with you as idle speculations. And I will take a certain amount of liberty in doing that. And I hope that you will forgive me, and Doshi above will forgive me for doing that. But the first thing that really struck me when I opened this book is that it is dedicated to his mother. Well, it is dedicated also to his wife, Kamala. But before that, it's dedicated to his mother, for her constant presence and guidance. And as you turn your pages through the book, you find him quoting her repeatedly, which is stunning because she died when he was 10 months old. And what does that mean? Through the end, through the last pages, he's quoting her in quotation marks. And he's readily saying, these are just things I heard. My mother spoke to me. She was there. When I was sick, when I was doing this, when I was designing this, when Sangat almost shut down, always, this presence is always there as a fantastic ghostly figure. And it seems to me that that loss and this sort of production of compensation to retell her, remake her as an effective presence in his life, now I feel is a massive force in Doshi's work. That all the stories that he did, all the sort of fantastic sort of shades of moving things around, all the sort of twists and turns, and in the end not reaching anywhere, as in the Sangat narrative. We saw in the film, as the well-known the Sangat narrative, it has 7 entrances, you never really know what's happening. And you never really know when you're in the building suddenly. I think to a certain extent, our narrativizations of his constant quest to recreate home, or psychoanalytically, the lost mother, but not invest in that idea of home a clear sense of X is the place. Because he always walks outside its side. And there's this sort of constant dialogue, tension in his architecture between here is the place, but it isn't quite the place. The second major non-presence, biological continuation, is his father. He's almost absent from the book. He's mentioned briefly, and then he moves on. And then he comes back indirectly when his father remarried, and Doshi and his elder brother had a disagreement with his stepmother or father probably, and they moved out to a rented house. The rented house becomes an important place in Doshi's life. And it talks about a constant desire to find an alternate kind of leader, guru. Gurus is a very big word in Doshi's world. But every guru is also again, put aside. He goes to Bombay, goes to the JJ School of Architecture, leaves halfway through. Heads to the UK to study architecture at the ARIBA, etc., leaves three-quarters way through. Moves to Paris somehow through a connection with the Sempar, the Colombian architect, finds a job with Le Corbusier, who was designing Chandigarh, all the big things we've heard about. Amazing, fantastic intuition about how certainly Sangat is a rewriting of 35 Rue de Sèvres. But he leaves it. Then he comes to work on Chandigarh as Corbusier's architect and walks out of that project. And then he reaches Ahmedabad, and there, through the patronage of people like Kasturbhai, the big sort of Nehruvian era, 50s, 60s, high industrialist modernists who thought they could build institutions and who actively patronized it. And I think in particular through the new anchoring presence of his wedding with Kamala, who is not of his community, their wedding is not attended by anybody other than his brother, sort of anchors him precisely because, to a certain extent, she embodies for him a new possibility of place and home. So this, I think, plays itself into his best work. So if you look at the School of Architecture, this was an abandoned brick kiln. It's sort of some of the worst pieces of land in the Ahmedabad Education Society that was given to him. And he took the worst site point, the big ditch that had been done because they excavated all the topsoil to make the bricks, etc. He first sited the building elsewhere, but then he said, no, I'm going to site it exactly where you don't think it would be. And not only am I going to site it over there, I'm going to make that into the heart of the institution. And he produced a section and a series of stairs and a series of events and movements which completely embodied that possibility. Same thing with Sangat. It's off of a major road, very busy highway, massive drive in cinema to the other state, all kinds of towers emerging, even in those days, early 80s, late 70s. Already the towers were coming a little bit, but they came later. And he produced a very special, different place. And you've heard the description of that place, wonderful. And of course, his own house, which has a tremendous presence, but which again plays with section. As you arrive, you step up, turn around, face the door, ring the bell, move into a space which divides into two, goes into a terrace, and then you step down, and again a series of steps which go up a mezzanine level, and then the rooms above. All this encompasses around and makes a sort of a very specific space out of it. And finally, I think also what the project that I love the most, also shown the Gufa, a cave, a fantastic space which also has the character of deep enclosure, moves into the ground and then covers itself over with a series of ineffable domes. I once looked at the sort of construction drawings that I think, who did the construction drawings? It wasn't Rajay, no. Anyway, extremely difficult, complicated construction drawings about how to pour these things. And I remember, actually, I was there in Doshi's office working on these plates when he said, hey, come here. And I said, yes, sir. And he was playing out with a clay model. It was about this big, I think. And he was with his hands sculpting the space out, really sort of getting into the earth. So very different, and he was just happy. Could tell he was so incredibly happy producing these spaces. The third thing that is, I think, that jumped out at me was his, and he's talked about this a lot, was the description of his household, his family and his household, which was multi-generational. You know, his grandfather was the sort of patriarch of the family, and he greatly revered him. But then there was aunts, uncles, kids, grandchildren, you know, there were like 5, 6 generations. And he describes this vividly. And anytime you have a conversation with him, pretty soon he'd be describing this, what it meant to have family. And this family and home, which he left and kind of walked away from and then reunited and had a relationship. But then he spent a lot of his time building up in different ways. And this, I think, was one of his greatest accomplishments, in particular, the creation of institutions like SEPT, the School of Architecture, and Sangat, you know, which was also a very open place. But he truly tried to create a place where different walks of people, different types of people, different generations of people, all of them would find a site to intermingle, to talk, to have conversations, even if not in what we would call here in the, you know, in a sort of a way. It was a semi-democratic space only. It had well-ordered structure. It had a clear hierarchy. And in a certain Ahmedabad kind of a way, there were sort of big people on site who had control and sway. And certainly Doshi himself was a grand doyen, a grand old man of the Ahmedabad scene. You know, he had a huge presence in the architectural milieu of not only the city, but nationally and now more and so internationally. He had a huge presence. So he was, and he cultivated it and he loved it. He was very happy to be in that position. But at the same time, that was sort of balanced out by his intense love and deep desire to be to build this family. And this used to be a huge culture in India in general, but certainly in Ahmedabad, which I think, you know, well, I don't go to India that often anymore, but certainly I wonder if that's a significant thing anymore. The last thing that I've learned from reading this again is the magic of it all, is what Doshi describes again and again as the spiritual or the sacred or the real search of what architecture is really about. He describes again and again, and you hear here also in the echoes of many people like Louis Kahn, who was of course significant in his life, and also Corbusier, and so many others, and the many people he quotes over here, is that in the end, architecture is not this or this, or even, I wonder, the title says it's within us. But what I read over here and what I've, you know, what I feel that he was after in the most deepest way was what he describes as the spirit or the spiritual. That there is something else that happens when architecture does architecture that is not directly accessible, quantifiable, or measurable, or knowable, or touchable, but that cannot be done without any of those, which is what it really is all about. Which I think is what he meant in the film when he said, in the end, you are trying to find yourself. I think that's what he meant. This is speculated, these are early rough thoughts, but I think that's what he meant. And I had the pleasure when he turned 90, the podcast that Mahesh mentioned, I wrote to Doshi and I said, sir, you have turned 90. It's time you have to do a podcast with me again. And somehow he agreed because it was over the internet. And I asked him what it meant, what it felt like to be 90. You can listen to the conversation, it's online. But he spent all of his time describing a river moving and meeting the ocean. And I think that's, in the end, I feel for him, or what I think I'm starting to understand, for him, it was this effort somehow to get into sync with the inexpressible possibilities of being alive. And one of the key things for him was, um, in the descriptions in the book, that the idea of reincarnation, the idea of constant reliving, was an important idea for him, which is that, he felt that it's not a one and done kind of a thing. So you can relax. Anand karo, what was the word that Kushner used in Gujarati, which are not my language, but that the older he got, the more relaxed he became, even as the politics around him, even as some of the institutions around him, went into very different times, became very difficult for him. Even as that happened, the last couple of times I met him, it felt to me, strangely and paradoxically enough, that he was becoming more and more himself, more and more finding himself, more and more, I think, becoming the person that he was discovering himself to be. Unlike what we would say here in the States, whoever you want to be. I don't think that was a thing for him. It was trying to find out who he was always. And that's the kind of idea that I think he was getting close to, at least in the last few years, last few encounters that I had with him in his life as one of his disciples. So that's all I have to share with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vikram. Yet another insightful, moving, and reflective, thought-provoking account, and more, I'm pretty sure, to dig into it as we move forward. So next, I'd like to invite Dean Karen Nelson again for introduction of our next speaker.
Thank you, Vikram. Thanks, Mahesh. It's my pleasure to introduce the BAC's Ian Frederick Taberner. Ian Taberner is a practicing architect, a longstanding faculty member at the BAC in our School of Architecture, and he's director of our master's thesis. Ian is a colleague and a dear friend who always has the right story at the right moment that somehow personally bridges modernism and contemporary design, somehow hewing to his own personal story, and I find it extraordinarily uplifting in my conversations with him weekly. As many of you already know, Ian is a poet who uses the architecture of light and material as his medium and in his teaching. His sketchbooks and his classes are filled with spatial explorations of implied and expressed thresholds that engage the body and the mind. Ian Taberner studied at Ryerson Polytechnical Institute. He earned a bachelor's degree from Pratt Institute and a master's degree from the Graduate School of Design at Harvard University. Ian was the 1985 William E. Muschenheim Fellow of the University of Michigan, and he was awarded the Fellowship for Architecture and Environmental Structures from the New York Foundation of the Arts. In 1986, he won a national competition for the May 4th Kent State Memorial. In 1998, he was awarded the AIAS President's Award for a pro bono project with his students at SUNY Buffalo. In 2003, Ian received the Design for Excellence Award from the AIA in Rochester for his Greater Rochester 9/11 Memorial. In 2019, Ian Taberner was the Gunnar Burkhart's Research Fellow at the University of Michigan's Bentley Historical Archives, and he has been a Fulbright teaching specialist since 2018. As many of you know, he has spent years teaching in Korea and China, and most recently in Pakistan. Professor Ian Taberner is always searching through his teaching and his learning alongside his students how to explore ideas that connect architecture and landscape. Please give a warm welcome to Ian for his talk, Drawing Doshi.
Thank you kindly, Karen. I think I'd kind of rather stand in the shadow and turn the light off, but I really appreciate. Thank you. I'm very, very honored to speak here and actually humbled to talk a little bit about Doshi. I have not visited his buildings. I have not been to India, but I know a little bit about India vicariously through others. Um, what when the exhibit came here, I knew who Doshi was because of his eminence and his importance in architecture. Um, I looked through the gallery, I did a quick tour, and I left. And then I went back to the gallery and I looked at the work again and again. And what I thought initially might have been okay, ordinary, I realized was absolutely extraordinary. And it was really amazing. So I thought this started from our gallery talks. I would be sketching and drawing, and I spent time there. And so this talk is really about looking at Doshi, drawing from his models and his drawings, and trying to understand certain things. First of all, I wanted to understand education because we are a school. So I looked at his projects that related to education. Then their relationship to landscape, because they had a very profound interest to the land and the ground. And then my general curiosity about what tools seems to be using kit of parts, extruding, there's the path, there's all of these other kinds of archetypes that he was engaging. So, so really the talk is really drawing Doshi, draw as to extract, like water from a well, to depict, underscore always denotes importance, and then ing is a verb, right? So it's action, and then Doshi. So this was done months ago. But then I returned to uh, some of the things that I've read, and the words of Manuel de Solis de Morales means a lot. He writes, to draw is to select is to interpret, and to interpret is to propose. So with that, I wanted to talk. I've met Doshi. I don't have a strong recollection. It would have been 1984 at Pratt Institute. I was a research assistant on a book called A Search for Identity. And my professor at Pratt was working on this book because he was very much against international style and these buildings that were being built everywhere in the world, and he wanted to seek out the architects that were doing something individually. So with this, and then my second interest, because I think this was meant to be informal, I grew up in a household where my father was English and had been in the RAF and actually had designed aircraft, and my mother Scottish. And if you know anything about being in an English household, you know, England is the greatest place you could ever be, except for when my mother was present because she was from Scotland. But the other thing that was interesting is my father always spoke. He lived in India for about 2.5 years. From 1943-ish, I can imagine, till middle of 1944, maybe later. I only have 4 or 5 pictures of my father, but this is one that is important to me. Oh, now I'm pushing the green. Does it change? With the middle one? Okay. So this is my father. He had designed this aircraft. It was not successful in the European conflict, but it was very successful in flying from Calcutta, where he was based at this base, into Burma, because the Japanese were building a road through Burma towards India. So my father always spoke of India as this magical, mysterious place. And that other children grow up with other places. Maybe they go to Disney or something, but not for my father. This was some place I had to go, someplace that was magical. The next part with working with is this book with Theo Harris David, and then these 2 pages feature the work of Doshi. And he came to Pratt. I was the person who worked the slide projectors and such, but I didn't have a closeness, but I was aware of the work. Charles Correa was there, I believe Roger Wall, Uttam Jain, and architects from other areas for this conference. So I'd like to begin. So I was interested in education, and I went back to look at really the beginnings of education. And I did not know this, but I started my research, and that within ancient India, there were 2 methods of education: the Vedic, which was based on the Sanskrit, and the Buddhist, which is Pali. And that ancient education in India was unique among all ancient forms of education. Education was mostly given in forests under the blue sky, which was believed would keep a student's mind fresh and alive, right? As you can see these images. And education was imparted in forests away from cities and people to give students a pleasant and silent environment for study. What I think was really remarkable, but was also to find, that during the Vedic period, women's education was emphasized. And this was unique and unusual at this time of the world. It's really the first place where women's education is important. This is the first project that I looked at. These images are taken from downstairs from the computer. This is the children's school. You can see the spaces in between the classrooms and the pathway. What I found remarkable in just sketching this is that you can see that each classroom is surrounded by a garden. So this is the first thing of the relationship of the building to landscape, right? So each classroom, if you think of it, on each of its 4 sides, because he's offset, has a garden around it. There's also issues of repetition, additive and subtractive, path, circulation, void, and also extrusion when we see the models. So this became very interesting. This one has a linear path. The other projects have paths that cross. This is the School of Architecture. What was interesting for me, and of course I have not visited it, was how was this connected to nature? And what became apparent is the vertical walls are all parallel, and that actually the gardens or the green spaces are at the sides of the building. So if the first project surrounds nature, this one frames it very clearly with walls. So when you're under it or around it, you can see garden this way, garden that way. There are some cases where you can see this rough sketch, you can see how you can sort of pass through the building, and even some of the images that you can see all the way underneath the building. So this what I was intriguing to me. The next project is the Institute of Management. And for this, I would like to commend the gallery designers and the makers of everybody that was involved with the design of the exhibit. These models are absolutely fantastic. And I have to say something personal that happened. So this talk that I had given before, and part of it was always done downstairs, and I could do my smoke and mirrors with my drawings, and then I could show the project like this. Well, I couldn't do that. So I had to take pictures, and this was a few days ago. So I start to take pictures. And as you can see, I removed pieces of the model. There was children in the gallery with someone, and they went, "You can do this?" We were told not, they thought you couldn't touch. So they started taking them out all over the gallery and taking them out and trying them from one side to the other side and all of this. And I thought to myself, you know, if Doshi could see this, his eyes would be smiling. And then the great moment came when someone went into the Gufa studio with the balls, and you know what was going to happen. They hit the floor and they went every which direction. Then I knew for sure that Doshi was laughing, for sure, because he would have just had the greatest time. So this was great. And what I found what's really remarkable, if we go back to the Vedic understanding of education, it's outdoors. Right? So here we have the biaxial path. The first garden is, the second garden is 1.5 times the first garden. The third garden, the largest one, is twice as large as the first one. It's not quite drawn to scale. But what's interesting, they're courtyards. And in the courtyards, Doshi's done this I wouldn't know this until I looked at the legend of the rooms, and I thought, this is really quite remarkable. Everything outside of the garden or green spaces is administration and faculty, and classrooms and places for students are all inside the courtyards, and that the edges of the walls are actually spaces of travel. So, and this is a repetitive element that's repeated around. This was one of the earlier sketches. I just was playing with it, and they're all the same. Some of them are flipped, some of them are reversed, but it's the same thing. And here's this interesting thing. So the classrooms are all in the garden. So where children are, where there is studying and learning rather, it happens in the green space. And then the other stuff, of course, it's green on the outside too, but it's interesting that, so this for me was actually a courtyard. So we have surrounding, we have framing, and this sort of is the enclosed courtyard. The next project, getting closer to, I just have a couple of images. This one dealing with the hall and the kind of, I think I've always been a fan of the writings of Peter Magyar, who talks about frozen air and frozen space. And this is not a courtyard, it's a theater or an auditorium, but the model is made in such a way that the top comes off of it. And then the last project that I looked at was his studio. And I found this early sketch online, and I printed it and looked at it for the longest time. You can see that the geometry, the circle is completed, the plan or the section makes 2 squares, and then a root 2 or golden section. I would have to have more it's hard to tell with this sketch. But what was most remarkable with the other projects that were related to education, there was this garden and surrounding, garden and framing, garden and enclosed. And I didn't realize this till the last or second last talk that I gave. If you look inside the building of his sketch, you can see a tree. So the tree that was always outside is now in as a part of the studio. Thank you very much.
Great. It just gets more and more intriguing, right? As we dig deeper. What I'd like to do is we will spend about 15 to 20 minutes. Instead of, I was going to have a discussion, but let me open it up for question and answer. So I'd like to request our speakers to come here and take these chairs. so we can actually facilitate and moderate a conversation. Could we have the lights up completely? So I think what we have seen so far is blissfully enigmatic, right? Kind of see it as Vikram Prakash was talking about good luck trying to decipher Doshi, right? I think that is so true. And that is the beauty of it too. That is, it just invites engagement, but not necessarily that there is a definitive answer at a particular point of time, or maybe the answers begin to shift. So I find a lot of themes that are intriguing: serendipity, discovery, play, and in uncharted, right? The paths that are uncharted that begin to recur in many of his projects in his life. So I think there are many themes to dig into. And then, of course, the psychoanalytic dimension that Vikram has brought up about Doshi's mom as well. So there's a lot there. So I'm pretty sure there are a lot of questions or observations and pondering. So let's open it up, see what on your mind. Yeah, please.
First, thank you. This is enlightening and revealing of things I'd never seen before. There's a kind of indeterminacy about some of the work, and I would make the distinction between the monumental buildings and those that are otherwise. None of you talked about housing that he shows in great detail in this exhibit, which I think has an element of indeterminacy. The only building I saw on the screen that's indeterminate in its form is the Management Institute. Unless I'm missing something, can you comment about the role that may have played? I think it works well into the conversation about his personality, but I didn't hear you really describe it in the housing vein.
Can I backtrack a little with what Mahesh said and then come to the question was raised, how do you decipher Doshi? If you want to kind of put it simply, I would say, he tried to create buildings which offered possibilities. It gave occupants, the users, room to be themselves to a greater extent than some other buildings which architects would do, which are more deterministic. So his architecture is of possibilities, which is a very different thing, or it gives something more than just what is expected. But it's connected with a very difficult task, talking of housing, etc., where the architect has to take a position, which is a very difficult position to take. As a designer, you have to learn to use your judgment and say, thus far and not further. Where do I stop? This is what I'm trying to. And Rahul Mehrotra many a times jokes about his academic career. And he is from Mumbai. And parents always are concerned sending children away. So Rahul was being sent to Ahmedabad. And he says his father came to visit Ahmedabad School of Architecture. And at that time, there were 4 sets of brick walls. Canyon brick walls, 27-inch double Flemish bond. Try to design it, those architect types. Not easy thing to do. Very finely crafted details and other things, even in these buildings which are there. But his father was a businessman. He jokingly says, I don't know it's an urban myth or not, but he is somewhere on the record. Oh, he has spoken, so it must be somewhere in the ether. So he cannot turn around on me. And he said, I'm not sure about you going to this school because they haven't spent their money wisely. Looks like they ran out of the money and they've just built this wall, and now this is a school. So, and many of his buildings often had limited budget. Management Institute, for example, which you said, landscape comes after, much after, and it matures. So he anticipates and work with this. His own residence, which is not shown here, he had acquired one of the largest plots in that cooperative societies, had no landscape at all. Where you see him in the movie, where he sits there in the garden meditating and so on, there was no tree. And now you see peacock coming in the morning. My wife and I are upstairs in the house, and suddenly she's scared because monkeys are running through this. And this is what he managed to do. So am I able to cover it in a kind of
My association with Mr. Doshi is 1966. I used to work for architect Kanvinde, Achut Kanvinde. He had a practice in Delhi, Kanvinde and Rai. And Mr. Doshi had come to Delhi, and he actually told me, come to Ahmedabad. I just gotten out of college and see me. And I still regret that day that I went to Ahmedabad, but I chickened out of living by myself. I was very young in Ahmedabad, all alone with all Gujarati being spoken. But anyway, that was that end of it. But he remembered. I met him again, and he said, "You never came to see me." I was very surprised by his memory that he remembered. But I worked after that in Berlin with Shadrach Woods, and they had together worked for Le Corbusier. And now I can understand how they had won the competition. Candelas Joseph Wood had won a competition for Free University in Berlin, and it was called Freie University. And there was the same concept of courtyards and gardens and the institutional building, and I can relate that to his concept later on. And then in 1990, I took a group of architecture students from BAC to Ahmedabad. Unfortunately, there was not enough planning done to prearrange to meet him, so they didn't let us inside Sanghan, but we saw the garden. It was not as green and as lush and developed as in the photograph, but we did get a chance, and they said, Mr. Doshi is not here, and you can't go inside. Anyway.
Could you please tell us more about Mr. Doshi works in public housing and this big building, gathering a massive number of people in two ways. You said architecture of possibilities. So what do you notice as the feedback of people now after many years having lived in his buildings? How do you see an evolution of the attitude of people? How do they respond? Do they modify the space? And also, in this concept, you spoke so much of Mr. Doshi in relation to Le Corbusier, who had such a, I'm of French origin, a strong concept of how communal housing should operate. Could you tell us a little more of how Mr. Doshi diverge or develop his own vision?
Okay, it's like the press conference, one after another, you asking and trying to, okay. The most open-ended housing project he did was the township of Aranya for very poor clients. It's in Indore, in central India, and that project is included here. It was designed as what is referred to in the kind of design jargon as sites and services. Because the formal authorities did not have enough monies to build housing, nor the clients who were identified who would be living in there had enough monies to pay for it fully, it was conceived as you will give residents access to plots and they will have a title, so they will feel safe. And then, over a period of time, they will be able to build their own home. So that is what is the kind of, and the concept is very old. Uh, Charles V, when he sent out people to establish themselves in the New World, that was the kind of concept used. You go to the Americas and you will be given titles to the property, but not until you invested yourself in it. And that's how the laws of the Indies were established. So the game is very old, and the developers and authorities use it. But to make these things very efficient and affordable, the effort was made to make them as small as possible with lowest amount of infrastructure costs related to it. And as a result, what was happening that the housing which was produced by other designers and government officials was not giving residents enough possibilities to have shoulder room to go set up their shop, create a workplace for themselves, because the homes were not just shelters. They were places of work, they were places of earning, they were places where people would, over a long period of time, use the house itself as a mode of earning money and letting a house or building an extra room or your family grows. So these possibilities, Doshi understood, and we worked with his team at Vastu Shilpa Foundation in the slums and showed how best to do these things, and those things were integrated in that very large project. And that is a project where 65% of housing was for people earning less than $2 a day. So there were plinths, there were service courts, but judiciously placed, so it was very low infrastructure costs, and it would give people spaces to set the staircases up, create an environment which was an urban order. The urban design controlled these things, whereby the public face of the street was not compromised in the process. So it was a very sophisticated dance that he established.
Other questions? Yeah, great.
My name is Kirit Desai. I'm Doshi's one of the early students. I joined in '63, the second year that he started the SEPT University. And I just wanted to tell about the Deciphering Doshi. I was fortunate enough to work with two Pritzker Prize winner at the beginning of my career, Doshi, and then later on with IMP. And some of the things to decipher was that they both have a similar kind of streak in them to really become a very successful and very accomplished architect, which was they both were extremely, in a very different way, ability to tell their story, great storyteller, and they can sell whatever they had ideas. So we used to joke about it. to Doshi and later on pays, he can sell ice to the Eskimos. So they were really great in doing that. And back to the housing things, I worked with him in '69 on his Hyderabad project or housing, ISIL Corporation. And Doshi's really greatest ability to understand the client, understand, and then create an innovation within the limitations that he has programmed. So many times the clients were pretty surprised at the end result that they agreed to all of these things, but that's not what they wanted it. So, and it was the same with IMP. He has all these lot of buildings he did, including here in Boston. His ability to really understand the project, the problem, and to the end user. And I think that's really great things for anybody, including architects. So Doshi always came with housing issues. You were telling, Doshi always brought innovations and ideas that was never really part of the program. And he introduced an element that actually surpasses his sort of ideas. And so when you go to the building, it's always something different than the other ones did. And he loved to build houses and housing. And I remember one time he was mentioning when I was doing ISIL, he says, and he always reflected on his master, which is Le Corbusier. And he said, I'm going to build more houses than Corbusier ever built it. So yeah, I'm very happy, and thank you, Mahesh, and to invite us to these great exhibitions and program. So thank you.